Raj Kapoor, DevAnand, or Dilip Kumar, who sort of spurred each other on all the time. She said, there was a time when Shah Rukh took Aryan everywhere, just like that. Whether it was a party, whether it was a premiere, I mean, he would always take Aryan with him.
Your book, The Three Khans,
yes, let me do a bit of self promotion. yeah, it's out. I wanted to bring out the fact that all these three Khans are actually children of that India. Aamir's father was not a very successful film producer. Salman's father was a very successful film writer, but as he told me, it was only much later that he started making money.
Kaveree, welcome on Bollywood Hungama.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here, Faridoon. I've watched you for months and years, so it's very exciting.
And I've been following you for a really long time as well, so it's a huge honor. And so your book, The Three Khans.
Yes, let me do a bit of self-promotion.
Please do that.
It's out. Yeah, it's out, and please do buy it. It's available on Amazon. Thank you.
What I found very interesting, as I mentioned you, that many a times we tend to skip certain portions because maybe they are not interesting. But when I started reading this book, so I just could not skip anything because it was extremely engrossing, told in a very interesting manner.
Thank you.
And what I personally found very interesting was the context and the perspective that you have given to the journey of the three Khans, Salman, Aamir, and Shah Rukh.
Right.
So if we can start from the political backdrops that you've given, you've complete gist of whatever has been happening since late 80s in India, how the growth of the Khans has taken place vis-a-vis that journey.
Right. Faridoon, I think we've all lived through that era. So I wanted to just recapture that, in a sense, all of us are children who've seen an India which was pre-liberalization. They've seen an India that was post-liberalization. We are sort of the analog generation. We were there when there were just landline phones. We were there when there was just one television channel. We were there when there was only one Rajiv Gandhi, not so many Gandhis floating about. So it was a very different era, and I think I wanted to bring out the fact that all these three Khans are actually children of that India. So when I talk about Salman actually waiting for his uncle to get him Wrangler jeans from abroad, or Aamir, Aamir's father actually running out of money at one point, and Aamir actually being terrified that his name would be called out because they couldn't pay the fees. Or Shah Rukh, when he was in St. Columbus, they couldn't really afford fancy clothes, so they had this big C written by hand on their T-shirts. I think it reminds us of our own childhood, and we didn't have much. But I think we had a lot of dreams and aspirations, and I've tried to collate that with actually the rise of Rajiv Gandhi and also his decline. It was a very swift decline with Bofors. And then, of course, what Jairam Ramesh calls the three M's, Mandal, Mandir, and market, the three forces of liberalization, of the Ram Janmabhoomi temple movement, and Mandalization, which created a lot of mobility, upward mobility among the castes. So I wanted to bring all this together with these three men living quite different lives, one in Delhi, two in Mumbai, who sort of knew each other, but not quite. And although both Aamir and Salman were from the industry, so to speak, they were not exactly in the center of it. Aamir's father was not a very successful film producer. Salman's father was a very successful film writer, but as he told me, it was only much later that he started making money. So they were not always in money. So I think that's the kind of India I wanted to remind people. And, you and I may remember it, but a lot of kids may not. So I wanted to tell them, look, this is where these three guys began. And this is where they are now. One has a mansion, on the beach of Mumbai, literally. Another's Galaxy apartment is like a big landmark in Mumbai, and another, of course, keeps moving around depending on who his wife is, which is a bit of a difficult thing to address. But how far these three men have come, and how far they've taken Indian cinema, beyond India.
Definitely. So let's talk about the perspective that you have tried to give about their religious identity, that they cannot
Yes.
they've not been able to escape right from the beginning of their career, even
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And why was it important for you to address that?
Faridoon, I think it was very important because when I talk about the emergence of New India, there are a lot of things in it which you and I may find distasteful, but a lot of other people feel that this is finally Mufasil India, this is finally marginal India, which was considered marginal, coming to the forefront. And, all those energies that had been sort of not been allowed to come to the forefront have now been unleashed. So I think it was very important to address that. Ashish Nandi told me something very interesting. He said that, do you think now we will ever come to a point where we have three men of a particular religion being at the very top of the cultural landscape of the country? He says he's not sure. But at the same time, you have people like Mahesh Bhatt who say that the state is very different from the country. The state may have a particular ideology, but the whole nation may not necessarily agree with that. But of late, as you've seen, and as I've tried to say, Faridoon, that there was a time when all three of them were quite vocal about what they felt politically. But if you've seen that they've receded further and further into the background, a lot of people may say that it is because they lack courage, but you can also argue that they have suffered, their films have suffered. And when a film suffers because of a political boycott, it's not just a star who suffers, it's the entire film and everybody who works with it. We saw the whole boycott, that the Shiv Sena at one point had organized on My Name is Khan, if you remember. And that was a time when Shah Rukh spoke up, and he used to speak up at that point, and he would assert the fact that being a Muslim doesn't mean that he's not an Indian, and he's a nationalist. But I think the definition of nationalism itself has become so polarizing now, and the kind of social media toxicity that they are the recipients of. I wonder sometimes how thick their skin has to be. It really requires a lot of. It requires a thick skin. It requires a lot of courage to even be silent in these circumstances. So, but I wanted to address that because I feel we've not addressed that properly, and I feel that they themselves have become a party to their marginalization to a certain extent, because whether they had to or not, that's arguable. They have in a sense also identified themselves with certain key projects of this government, which is so clearly set against them. It is so clear, I mean, there is no doubt about it.
Apparently, Shah Rukh said he helped out. He helped you guys in a hospital in Dubai, and he said that it's
Yeah.
easier for me to get a job done in Dubai like this rather than India.
Yeah, and my funniest remembrance of him is, of course, when he says that, why do they always say that go to Pakistan? He says, I have nothing against Pakistan, but why can't they think of any other country, maybe with better weather, better landscape? Why always Pakistan? So I find that so funny. So they've also learned to deal with it with humor. What can they do? Anytime they say anything political, look at the fact that what happened last time when Shah Rukh spoke up and said that it was a pity that Pakistani players couldn't play in IPL. I mean, it's a perfectly rational statement. There's nothing so polarizing about it. But that was it. That was enough for everyone to attack him.
And the way Aamir is being trolled right now, once he announced
Yeah.
his
I mean,
separation from.
divorce, his separation. I think it's so shameful. Don't you agree? I mean, people have separated before. People have had affairs before. It's not new. But to suggest, I mean, the other Khan always has this, Saif, who, of course, I don't cover in the book because the Saif and Irfan, I feel, are two totally different. I've been asked, why did you keep these two guys out of it? But they come from two totally different traditions. You cannot really equate them with these three. And the way Saif gets trolled every time, I think it's really shameful.
All right. Now, interesting part is it's this book. We are talking about all the things which are maybe not nice, the way they've been happening to these Khans. But coming to think of it, once I've read the book, that all the three Khans, they may not be very happy after reading the book either, because
Yeah.
it's not an exercise in celebrating the fandom of these three Khans. You've been rather objective in just documenting their personal and professional lives.
I think so, Faridoon, because, see, we all love them. There's no doubt about them. They're a part of our cultural landscape. They're a part of our heritage. They're part of our memories. How can we say that we didn't grow up on their movies? Everyone knows their songs, their scenes, their dialogues. But at the same time, we have to look at who they are actually as well, what they stand for. Often they've made mistakes, and I think they'll also be the first to admit that they made mistakes. But what is the point of doing something that doesn't cover every aspect or as much as is possible? I've not done anything that has not been publicly documented or which I know for a fact. I've been very careful. But at the same time, there are things that we know. And to write a book which would not have that would be quite silly, considering their lives are such public knowledge and everything that they do is in the public domain. Then to say that, okay, this did not happen with Aamir, or this did not happen with Salman, or that big fight that happened between Salman and Shah Rukh, that didn't happen, that would have been foolish. So I don't know
Right.
if they'll ever speak to me again, but it's okay.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. That if anyone thinks that it's an exercise in celebrating the fandom of the Khans, of the three Khans, then it's not. I think it goes beyond that.
But
And
it's a celebration of their movies. It's a celebration of their
definitely,
of their contribution.
definitely of their contribution and the way even their working style, how they approach their work, and even the sort of professional rivalries that they've had amongst themselves.
Yeah.
So that
Which is
has
quite
been
interesting. I think someone asked me this question, Faridoon, that do you think that they would all have been who they are without the other? And I wonder, and I think not, because I feel that they were this trinity. They are this trinity, like Raj Kapoor, DevAnand, or Dilip Kumar. Who sort of spurred each other on all the time. They always looked over their shoulder. Okay, what is that guy doing? What is this guy doing? I think for them to have coexisted at the same time is quite a remarkable turn of history, and quite a remarkable moment in history as well, which I think maybe 25 years later we'll celebrate, just as we now celebrate Raj Kapoor, Devanand, and Dilip Kumar. We celebrate their legacy. I think 25 years later, they might still be around, by the way. I'm pretty sure. Salman will be possibly doing Dabang 10 or Tiger 12, but they might still be around. But it'll be interesting to see how India celebrates them 20 years later. I think we'll have a more humane view of who they were, and the times that they lived in, very tough times and changing times.
right. So you've given hope at the end when you talk about what Bhatt Saab said about that, how people have not people are different from maybe the way the projections are through media and social media and other vehicles. But at the same time, you've also been rather not that optimistic about the future of the three Khans because of various reasons. Even in terms of the choices that they've made, and the repetitions that have been happening, and the reinvention of their own persona, and the personal element, how it has hampered their growth in a way, and then the growth of other artists, other actors, and entire projection, where a few artists, few actors, they are being highlighted, and all we listen about the Khans are the criticisms that are coming from various quarters, including social media. So you're saying two things simultaneously. So please tell me the logic in that.
Yeah, see, one thing, Faridun, the nature of stardom, especially in the last 2 years, has definitely changed. We no longer And I don't know whether it'll come back or in what form it'll come back. We don't know whether those 100, 200 crore club markers will hold anymore. Or if that happens, how soon will that happen? So that's one thing. So that whole idea that, this is a 200 crore film or 300 crore film, that I'm not sure when it'll come back. Streaming itself has created a much more level playing field. You have a whole lot of new stars, even if you don't want to call them stars, a whole lot of new actors who've come in who have their own very devoted following. So I feel that with this, it's imperative for all three of them to change, and they have to change, keeping what is happening in front of them. I feel, especially Shah Rukh and Salman have become too reverential and referential. You cannot just keep making fainter and fainter photocopies of Tiger and Dabang and Radhe and hope that people will be satisfied. They might be, but they also have a lot more options. With Shah Rukh, you cannot always hope to have a small idea mounted on this lavish scale and hope that people will not notice. They will look for the story. They will look for more than just your charisma. So I think those two guys are the ones who have to really rise to the challenge now. I feel that they have it in them. After all, they're great storytellers, all three of them. Amir, to a certain extent, is the least bothered by this because he has always played characters, so we accept him as a father in Dangal to the same woman who's a sort of love interest in Thugs of Hindustan. We don't really think too much about it. But I think all of them have to find within themselves that clarity of thought and that ability to tell a story that they had, and the ability to take risks that they had. Somewhere I think they've become far too comfortable. It's only natural, they're so successful. But I think the new age with its more evolved audience will expect them to do much better. And don't forget the challenge from the south. And every day now, uh, a Malayalam film is pitted against a Hindi film, and the Hindi film looks so shabby and so jaded in comparison. And you think, what is the Hindi film industry thinking? So there's a lot that's going on, a lot that's changing. But these guys have been around for 30 years. I'm sure they'll find the right ecosystem, the right allies, the right people around them who will tell them, look, this is who you were, this is who you need to become again. Take a risk, do something different, be authentic to yourself. I think they've forgotten that. Their idea of being authentic is to say, acha acha, I did this in Dabang, so let me do it again. It won't work. I think people are now getting a little tired of it. That's the sense I get.
All right. So now, as you mentioned in the beginning itself, that they've been silent of as far as whatever noises that is happening around them. They prefer to be silent. But with the high decibel trolling that continues to take place, as far as all three are concerned, whenever they say anything or they don't say anything, they tend to be trolled. And do you think that after a point of time, such sort of trolling, it can possibly take a toll on anyone, and they're human after all.
Of course, that's what I said. You have to understand. I mean, it's very easy to say they lack courage when they don't speak up. It's the first reaction. We always say, oh, Meryl Streep speaks up in the West. Why can't these guys speak up here? Meryl Streep doesn't have people lining up outside Mannat, threatening to break down Mannat, or people, threatening to throw stones on you or threatening bodily harm. She doesn't have things like that. So, the problem with India is our stardom is so immediate and it's so palpable, and it's so visceral that we feel that we own them. We can say what we want to them, and they won't respond. So, as I said, I can see their dilemma. Let me put it this way: I can see their dilemma. I can understand their dilemma, but I also understand that we are the generation that grew up listening to them speaking their mind. And for us now to see them not doing that, when we know what they actually think, is disappointing. Let me put it that way, because we've seen Aamir speaking so critically of the Narendra Modi government in Gujarat when the riots happened. We've seen Shah Rukh, we've seen Salman speaking about Pakistan. Now Pakistan is just a taboo word. You can no longer mention it. But they remember history, they know what it was like earlier, and they have fans all over the globe. So why should they not address them? But that is unfortunately the reality of New India, and not everything in New India is something that is tolerable.
And you talk about Shah Rukh with regards to his children, that he took them to the parties, he took them everywhere, and he was
Yeah,
he's extremely protective and hands-on father, inspired of being a
yeah.
superstar. That is one responsibility that he has taken up very seriously.
Yeah, and I've always told him whenever we speak, which is once in 2 years maybe, and sometimes more often, I've always felt that he really needs to write the ultimate manual for parenthood. I feel he's been such an amazing father. The kind of freedom that he's given his children. Uh, at the same time, he's given them a solid grounding in education. He's of course opened their eyes to a world where perhaps they would never, I mean, if they were not his children, they would have never seen. But I remember Farah telling me that when I was talking to her about Abraham and Shah Rukh and how Shah Rukh takes Abraham everywhere, she said, there was a time when Shah Rukh took Aryan everywhere, just like that. Whether it was a party, whether it was a premiere, I mean, he would always take Aryan with him, and always, he would hold him close to him. So I think, of course, that comes from not having his parents around. There's no doubt about that. I think that whole gap in his life where his parents could not see his success, I think that's really makes him quite a tragic creature.
That's very interesting. So, Kaveri, I think we can go on and on and on. Like I've read the book very thoroughly, and I
I'm so
really
grateful.
no, it's not a matter of it's not a matter of being grateful. Like um, I learned so many things. So it's our profession. So we need to keep on updating ourselves. So that is something which is important. But I would definitely would like to congratulate you for
Thank
writing a book that is being as honest as possible. It is not an exercise in terms of selling numbers or maybe getting in the good books of any of the stars or almost anyone, which requires courage as well, which requires courage. And I think that is why you are what you are, and with the sort of
Thank you.
body of work that you have. So thank you for talking to us, and congratulations for a fantastic book.
Thank you. Yes. And please, is it in focus? Here. Yeah.
Yes, now it is.
So
Now it
please,
is.
yeah, please do buy it, read it, and please always follow Bollywood Hungama and Faridoon Shahryar for his lovely interviews. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Kavi. Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.